Righto, my treasures. Now, I did say in the week, the last days past as well too, a young star where we played the music of They Built This City. And part of the throb of our great city, of this great metropolis of the Penrith, the Pearn, the Riverlands, the Hawkesbury and the Macarthur, the voice of Troy Dodds is heard everywhere. Now, this young man qualified to comment again on this young bloke because I knew him when he was a cadet reporter with the Western Weekender. Then he began his radio career with Uncle Roscoe. Here he is, folks, the man himself, Troy Dodds, in this capacity as Justice Troy Dodds, superstar.
Roscoe, how are you?
I'm delighted to be able to chance this. The people who built this city. You're right at the heartthrob. You're leading the greatest newspaper of the West, and you have risen and arrived at an amazing status in your life. Where did it all start?
Well, it's funny, Roscoe, because it's I tell you where it all started with the Western Weekender, and that was that. They were looking for a journalist, and there was two of us that turned up for the job interview. Only one of us had a car. That was me, and I got the job. So we'll thank the driver's license for that. But prior to that, I was just dabbling, Roscoe. I was dabbling in bits and pieces around the traps, doing some writing for websites. At that time, the whole .com boom was really only just starting to happen. I was writing some rugby league content all over the shop, and when I left high school, I went to a place called Next Gen Sports, where I was their rugby league reporter for a while, and then ended up at the Weekender as the journo there, and I actually had 3 stints at the Western Weekender. This is my 3rd stint currently as the managing editor.
Not bad.
So,
back at the Grand Exalted Poobah.
The first one I actually got moved from Penrith though to the Blacktown paper, because the Weekender had a Blacktown paper at that time. So I went and worked there for a while. In the second stint, I was here as the deputy editor, and in the third one, which is almost a decade now, I'm been the managing editor. And we've seen the Weekender go from probably a paper that was just happy to survive at different times and be the 3rd paper in town behind the Penrith Press and the Penrith Star, to see those papers off over time and be the number 1 paper and now the only weekly newspaper in town. So it's exciting.
And well done. That's more than we can say. Where did you go to school?
I went to school right here in Penrith at Jamison High School,
Wow.
and no uni. So that's I'm one of the stories of no uni. And I in our newsroom, we have a mixture of both. We have some who've come through the university system and some who don't. I love the university system. I think it's great. But you get a completely different person if someone who comes through uni and someone who doesn't. Not better, not worse, but very different. So that's why we like to mix it up. I was running a rugby league website when I was in year 12 at high school, and then got the job straight out of high school. So my plan was to go to uni and do journalism, but got the gig at Next Gen Sports and wasn't required.
That's sensational. Now, there have been the other involvements. There have been not only writing editorials and also doing the websites for people there. Have you ever actually been one of our sporting legends?
Oh, I don't think so, Roscoe. Have you seen me? I'm not much of a sporting legend.
He's a big boy. But solid.
Written about a lot of sport over the years, though, Roscoe. And of course, the Panthers, I guess, have been at the forefront of all of that. Been there for a lot of coverage of good and bad days at the Panthers. But yeah, sport myself, limited to some kids soccer and footy, and then Oztag down at the Kingsway, which I think everyone has done at some stage of their life if they live in Penrith. Had a few cold winters at the Kingsway with those 9:30 kickoffs down there. But but radio, I guess, is the other one, Roscoe, and. I've always loved radio. I loved radio as a kid. I used to listen to Stan Zemanek on 2UE to get to sleep at night. I couldn't sleep without it, the radio in the end, and that's where I fell in love with talk radio and radio in general. And you gave me an opportunity on this very network, Roscoe, with a different name, but it was been an exciting time in radio as well, being able to work at a whole bunch of different stations and still doing some radio around the traps today.
Oh yeah, you're here, Troy, on 2GB, and doing all of the news as only Troy can do it, and it's great to be part of it. And I think the loveliness of this great community where we're in, the Penrith, the Pearn, Riverlands, Hawkesbury, and the Macarthur, that we're heard throughout that, because it's responsible tellings of all that's happening, the people, the places, and that's this particular segment we're doing middays with Roscoe now, is to talk about the people behind their titles and where it all came from, where it all the people who built our city, and you're certainly part of that. Have there been any outstanding interviews that you've conducted personally?
Oh, look, Roscoe, I've had a lot of great highlights at different times. This job's given me so many great things. I mean, I've met, and sat down with 2 or 3 prime ministers, 2 or 3 premiers, and that's exciting because it's not that starstruck in any way, or even, I'm sort of a person who thinks, well, hey, they are just another person, but it is something that most people don't get to do. So to be able to sit down and have coffee with Kevin Rudd there at the Heritage Cafe in the Plaza one time, or sit down with Gladys Berejiklian, and they're great times and great memories. I was on air at 2UE. I was hosting the Mid-Dawn program at 2UE when the Sydney Siege happened, back 2015 or maybe earlier, but I was on air when that all finished, because it all, of course, came to its pretty bloody conclusion at about 2:30 in the morning. That's probably a highlight in the worst possible way. Obviously, it was a circumstance you don't want to be reporting on, but when you are reporting on it, they're the days you kind of live for and thrive for in this industry. So that was an exciting time. But Roscoe, I think more importantly, it's not the politicians, the celebrities and all of that sort of stuff. You speak to people on the ground in Penrith, and you mentioned it before. It's really important that we've got stations like Vintage FM and newspapers like the Western Weekender, because without them, the Penrith community just falls into the rest of Sydney as far as reporting is concerned.
And we can't let that happen.
No, particularly Penrith has so many great stories to tell, and those stories are not going to get picked up by a Daily Telegraph or a Sydney Morning Herald. They've got bigger fish to fry, and so you're not going to read about a local person's achievement or a new shop opening or things like that, which are really important in the community, and various achievements and what council's doing and things like that. And I really worry about this, Roscoe, because I think with local news starting to just sort of merge into the bigger picture and a lot of local newspapers going, things are going to happen at council level, at community level, that you're just not going to know about. And that's a bad thing for the people who are doing great things, but it's also not a good thing at all for the people who aren't doing so good things, who generally get reported on in court by responsible journalism. So it's a worry, but thankfully Penrith is in a strong position where it's got the Weekender, it's got Vintage FM, and it's got a lot of people out there cheering for it.
And the size of Penrith is enlarging, the population is changing, the beautiful melting pot that the whole Penrith, the Nepean, Riverlands, Hawkesbury, that we are such an amazing collection of people, but a dynamic part of Australia.
Well, 2 things, Roscoe, that I think, if you talk about the biggest changes, number one is obviously the fact that the airport is coming. Now, when I started in this job, the airport was still a debate of, well, this land's been reserved for decades, we're never going to do anything with it. You'll never see a plane fly from Badgerys Creek. It'll never happen. Now we're 5 years away from it happening. It's going to happen. And the impact of that is going to be huge on Penrith. And I know that at the moment we're going through some pain as a result of it, with roadworks everywhere and road closures. But the end result is going to be a lot of jobs, a lot of brilliant infrastructure, and that's going to be great for Penrith. And the other thing is a simple one, Roscoe. It's the food scene and the entertainment scene in Penrith. If you go back 10, 15 years, you're not really going out for dinner in Penrith. I mean, that's, you might go out if you want a quick family meal, steak meal or whatever. Yes. But if you want an awesome Mexican meal or, an awesome Vietnamese meal, you're not really thinking Penrith. These days that's changed, and we know how many awesome restaurants and bars are open in Penrith. And I don't think a lot of Penrith people appreciate it as much as they should, because they live if you go to another suburb and outside of this Penrith sort of basin, and you do feel like you've gone back 10 or 15 years, because Penrith is that far in front, and I don't think a lot of people realise it.
I was amazed on a Sunday night, a recent Sunday night, to be driving through my city. I was actually for one of my, if I call them clients, that I look after a lot of disabled people. And we were trotting down, and I need to get to our all-night chemist, a 24-hour chemist.
Yep.
But in the process of getting through there, I'm driving through High Street. I'm driving literally a part of Henry Street, off side streets, and there are shops open. There are these cafes, these new type of bars that we're featuring here. They're as up-to-date as anything in Sydney, and certainly in Melbourne. And here we are in Penrith. It's just as you were saying, we are alive.
Well, things are happening, Roscoe. Like, think about, we used to talk a lot and didn't used to do a lot. I remember growing up, the old Beef and Barramundi restaurant down there at Tench Reserve on the Nepean River, and everyone used to sit in it, and everyone used to talk about it. Everyone used to say, well, there's no windows in this place, but the river's right there. There should be 5 or 6 restaurants here. And we went on about this for decades.
Yes.
And now it's there.
Yes.
Because people finally, put their hand up and did it. And we've got some really good people in Penrith at the moment who have had the money and the guts to do it. Restaurants there, restaurants elsewhere in Penrith, other infrastructure. And I know there's a lot of complaints in Penrith about this building and that building, and we're ruining history and all of that. And there's an argument for that, absolutely. But otherwise, you just stand still and you don't attract this stuff because there's not enough people here. So, we're seeing really great infrastructure, really great development, and Penrith should get behind it. I know it's hard to do sometimes because none of us like change. We like to see that old fibro house sitting there, and we like the charm of it. We can't see past the charm of it to realise, well, actually, the 20 or 30 apartments that could go there has a much bigger positive impact on Penrith than that fibro house does, as much as sad as it is to see history go. But that's the reality, and sometimes history just has to exist in our minds and our hearts, and we need to move forward, and Penrith is moving forward, and it's an exciting city to be part of.
And no brakes being applied. It's just full speed ahead. And we do have good council. We do have good leaders. And as you said, those with the guts that have taken bitten the bullet.
Politicians get a hard time, Roscoe, let me tell you. I mean, and deservedly so in a lot of cases. But you won't find a more passionate Penrith person than our state MP, Stuart Ayres. Prue Carr, who sits on the other side of politics, you also wouldn't meet a more passionate person about this area and getting things done. Yeah. And your councillors, who everyone complains about and whinges about, their mobile numbers are freely available on council's website. Call them. If you've got an issue and instead of whinging about it, call them and they'll try and fix it for you. I always say that's one of Penrith's best kept secrets. You can call your local councillor. Mobile number is there. The person you go to elect that you forget about after you've gone and got your sausage sizzle every 4 years is there for you and can make things happen for you and can change things on the ground for you. And it's a great city to be there. And yeah, we see a lot of stories about councils in other areas and corruption and all of this sort of stuff. Not here. Penrith is actually a really great council. They're a great council to deal with. Yep. We've got a great partnership with them at the Western Weekender as well. But they're good people. They put great events on, which unfortunately have been sort of stalled during the whole COVID period. But they put great events on. They get a bad rap from people sometimes, and I think it's pretty unfair because I think they do a very, very good job for our city.
Well, in actual fact, folks, we're talking here with Troy Dodds, the editor these days, the great exalted poobah, managing editor of the Western Weekender. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Penrith at all.
Well, Roscoe,
we've ticked all the boxes.
There's always things wrong about everything, isn't there? I mean,
it's easy to criticise.
Yeah, it is.
It's better to praise.
You've got your car and it's a bit dirty. Well, maybe we need to look at the positive side. But look, we've got great. You said it before, Roscoe. We've got great people in Penrith.
Yes.
Catherine Garton is the owner of the Weekender.
Yes.
That was a really important part for us because in 2015 we were able to bring the Weekender back to local ownership, which is where it was for the 25 odd years prior to that. For a few years there, it fell out of local ownership. It's been back in local ownership since then, and her dedication to keeping this news service operating for Penrith is second to none. And it's people like that who have Penrith in their heart and a passion to see the city moving forward and to getting things done. And as I said, people are getting things done now that we only talked about before.
There you are, folks. You've seen why the Western Weekender. It is the leading newspaper, certainly the only one in Penrith, but it leads all the other suburban newspapers as well. And at the helm, there is the wonderful Troy Dodds. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Roscoe.